There we go. Well, here we go. Our first ever, very unorthodox virtual exhibit opening. And I've got my drink. I hope you do too, because we'll definitely be toasting to a bit of a new future for the Rahr-West. Right now, as everybody comes in, I do have you muted. You will have an opportunity to kind of talk at some point in time, but just to get things off as we introduce the new virtual gallery annex and give you a little bit of a tutorial, we want to make sure that there isn't a lot of feedback and stuff like that. So I'm really thrilled that you guys could all join us. This is something that, as Diana will explain, we cooked up in a very short period of time. And right off the bat, I want to also thank some of our partners on this. Jessie Daniels, who's with us and will be providing some music during the course of the next hour, and the Waterfront Wine Bar, who is our virtual caterer for this. So if you weren't able to get your food today, I know Rachel was telling us that she had a backlog because she had a lot of orders today. Please, if you can get to them and order some curbside pickup over the next few days, they would appreciate it. And they were great and very kind of quick thinking partners on this for us. I'm going to let Diana explain the virtual gallery to you. If you haven't yet, you can go onto our webpage as we do this Zoom meeting. If you do the exhibits drop down and look at the exhibits calendar, right underneath it, you'll see virtual exhibits, virtual exhibitions. If you click on that, it'll give you information that you can download the art spaces. And Diana's going to explain it. But before that, I need to introduce her by saying this is her brainchild. This is something that, as she'll explain, she started to do for educational purposes, and then through her hard work created something that really stands alone as an exhibit. So I'm really excited to be able to turn things over to her. And Diana, if you want to take it from here and give people a little bit of a tutorial, I will say cheers and enjoy. We all get to drink. I'm actually in the gallery, so I got to be careful with my wine. But you guys can throw your drinks and food around while you enjoy this great exhibit opening. Diana, you want to take it away?
Sure. I actually ordered my food from the wine bar, and my husband's going to go pick it up. So at some point, I'll have an interruption where my mojito is delivered. So I'm pretty excited for that. Welcome everyone. I'm really excited to share this with you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can see what I'm doing. So this virtual exhibit was developed with an application called Art Steps, and it's a free software and platform for art exhibits in virtual reality. So if you really like what you see, you can create a login and create your own exhibit. You can put in pictures of your pets or whatever you want. You can actually put in 3D objects. It's pretty cool. If you do that, I would love to see it. It would be really fun for us to share those. And there are a few different options for how to go around and look at the exhibit. The first is to look at it on the app. So there's an ArtStep app that you can download on an iPhone or an Android phone, any kind of smartphone or a tablet. I have an Android, so that is the process that I'll be able to answer the most questions about. But you just go to the App Store and download it. And then once it's up, you search for the Rahr-West Art Museum. And then you're given the option to either watch it or to watch it in virtual reality. And you can actually use these goggles, these virtual reality goggles, and like walk around the space and learn about it in there. I will be the first to tell you that I am not a gamer, so I don't know a lot about the navigating virtual reality. I'll answer questions the best I can, but this app is the only one I've ever used in virtual reality. So it is really cool, and I know a few people, including our administrative assistant's husband and son, and my 6-year-old son have tried that. And my son actually absconded with my phone for a while, so I will warn you, if you give that to a child, you might not get your phone back. But I did do a video on how to get around in the app, and this is the video. So you can walk around the space. by manipulating these little feet on the left-hand side. The eyeball over here will let you look around this space. There's an audio tour that this is actually rolling through that you can play here in the app with that little triangle on the top. If you click on a work of art, a little pop-up window will come up with the label information. It's pretty fun if you want to download the app and look at it that way. I think most people will probably look at it through the website because they don't have to download an app. You could just do it on any computer with a browser. So the direct link is right here. It's on our virtual exhibit page and on our education resources page. And you can also just go to the Art Steps website and search for it. It does take a little while to find it. You'll have to scroll a little bit to find it, but I promise you it is there. It also takes a minute or two to load when you open it up because it's a big file. But once it's up, it'll look like this. You'll be able to look around. I don't recommend having more than one of the Art Steps exhibits open at the same time because your computer might crash. But I haven't had too much trouble with just having one open. You can look around the space in the web browser by either clicking and dragging with your mouse or your touchscreen. So I'm dragging to the right when we turn this way. That's how you change the perspective. If you actually want to move throughout the space, you use the arrow buttons. So you use the up button to go forward, like that, the back or the down button to go backwards, right and left work as expected. There's also a few other ways to move around in the space. When you move your cursor around, you'll see these little feet move. So if I double click where those feet are, it'll take me to that spot. You can also click on a work of art and it'll take you over there. And you can see that's what the label will look like there. Sometimes I like to actually hit the up arrow after I do that to make the artwork bigger so that I can zoom in on details if I want to. There's also another way to get around. In the left-hand lower corner, there's this little map. And if you click on that, you can see this gallery is set up kind of in a U shape. You can click where you want to go on the map and it'll take you around to get there. There's also a guided tour that's an audio tour. And that's available if you hit this little play button, this little triangle button here. I'm not going to hit it now because you'll hear me talking twice and that'll be confusing and we'll probably get feedback. It's a short tour. It goes through about, I think it has 9 spots. It'll take you through and tell you a little bit more about some of the artwork and the history of the museum. We did keep that small on purpose and not have extended file sizes because we didn't want the load time to be extensive for the when you bring it up and open it up. So that's a little bit of how to get around. Greg, is there anything else you wanted me to add there?
I wanted to mention that a little bit later, the plan is to do a little bit of a guided tour. So if you want to stick around, what we want to do is give you all an opportunity to wander, quote unquote, wander throughout this virtual exhibit on your own. So if you haven't downloaded it or grabbed the app, I encourage you to do so. Otherwise, what we'll do is probably keep, Diana, if you want to keep up your, or put back your tour, and you can just kind of wander around over the next 15 minutes or so. But while we do that, while you tour around, like I had said when I introed this, we had the idea to do this pretty much late last week and into this week. So we thought, hey, this is a fun thing. Let's get it out. Let's get it in on people's radar. And we also decided, I think this was Diana's idea of, hey, what if we get some musical accompaniment like we would for a for an in-person exhibit opening. And we were lucky enough to get Jessie Daniels, who's a singer-songwriter who lives in the Green Bay area, who is going to join us, and he's going to play. I'm going to unmute him at this point. And Jessie, if you unmute yourself, I think you're good to go. And
Okay.
so I invite people for the next, 20 minutes or so, take a wander around like you would in person and take a look. And if you didn't download, you can still look around, just follow what Diana's up to. And I will say, if anybody has any questions before Jessie gets started, if you have any questions, use the chat button for the time being. And then at about, I would say, 5:45 or 5:50, we're going to do a little Q&A, and we're going to talk about what's up next for the Rahr-West. So please continue to stick around with us and enjoy this exhibit. Jessie, you can take it away. Thanks.
Okay. You're my visionary, string words on a wall. I'm your mercenary, fight for your love. Glaring gondolas, I am the sea. You're my informant, come and see me. Through the vine of the Midwest twine, I'll be there. Everywhere you go, in the sky, all the clouds align for reasons you don't know. And I'm falling down like snow. Everywhere you go. Through the vine of a glass of wine, I'll be there. and love me undone. You always will be mine, forever Valentine. I wanna be there when your day begins. Through the shine of a blinded smile, I'll be there. Everywhere you go, in the streets, all the clowns align for reasons. For reasons you don't know. But I'm falling down like snow. Everywhere you go, I wanna be there when your day begins. The moon is waiting, and a cold rain absorbed in your hood. You're a red bird high above me, and I just want what you good. The sun so far from me, I never got to see you in the light. You're a shadow, you're enchanting, black and white, pale and powdered work of art. And I see you every day now, in a sick buildings, lighting systems hard. There's a magnetizing pull about you, and no one needs to know how it works. And I look through a melody's border, stare through the glare of the light, and I dream all the letters in order. watch you tailing my canoe all the way back home. And I tried pretty hard to let you catch me, but I parked, turn around and you're gone. And I rolled down all the windows and let all the cold into the car. And I freeze out all my feelings. Let her go, sit her down and stay where they are. And I look through a melody's border, stare through the glare of the light. And I dream all the letters in order. If I don't see it coming, just tell me. If I don't see it coming, just tell me. You're an angel, you're enchanted, black and white, pale and powdered work of art.
All right. I know it's got to be odd for a musician to not be able to get immediate applause after his music. So everyone is unmuted. Please join me in thanking Jessie for joining us and sharing that with us. And I will say, I think right now it would be fun to do a little Q&A. But I will say, now that I've unmuted everyone, if you aren't speaking, if you want to mute yourself, you can. If you have any issues with it, just in the chat you can ask. But that will help us from getting a lot of feedback. Okay, so we ended up muting a few people because I think everybody's pretty much muted at this point, so that we could hear a few things. Why don't we, if you are familiar with the chat button, we can do that, or otherwise, if you want to hand raise, I'll be able to feed any questions. You should have the opportunity to unmute yourself if you have a question, but if anybody has anything, how many, or if anybody out there kind of decided to test drive this, you know, if you want to give us a little bit of feedback. I see one of the chats is, what is my favorite piece? In the virtual exhibit? Man, I don't know. One of the things, it's hard for me to beat Birch and Pine Tree #2 because for me personally, the fact that it was created in Lake George, New York, which is right near where I grew up, it's probably, I mean, it's like, that's the easy answer, right? But it's such a personal connection. So yeah, I'm stealing the big one. The fact that was created so close to where I grew up and where I still have family, and that normally during the summer I can go and drive by the location where it was painted. That's pretty neat for me. I also go ahead, Melissa.
You had asked if anybody had used the app or whatever before, and we downloaded the app here, and my son had some VR goggles laying around, and it was really a different experience. It was really, really neat, and everybody really enjoyed it. So if anybody has VR goggles or can purchase a pair, I would definitely recommend viewing the exhibit in that way.
Yeah, definitely. I don't have the app, but Diana was saying that the app works quite well too on a digital.
Apps.
APPS?
Yeah, apps, all that kind of stuff. They're always saying, go in and get an app. Go to the app store.
You don't have to get an app though, which is one of the reasons we really like the Art Steps platform, is that you can just use it on your internet browser too. It's a really nice option for people who don't want to go and put it on their smart device.
Yeah. Diana, you talked a little bit about how you started this, but do you want to mention a few things about what kind of the education stuff that you've been working on that led to this?
Yeah, so I first decided to put this exhibit together to correlate with some education materials because during the sort of stay-at-home time, I've been working at home for the last couple months, as Melissa has too. So I've been working to put together some K-12 resources for the museum. And I read through the Wisconsin standards and benchmarks for the schools and combed through our collections to find works that relate well. And then I wrote up some lessons for teachers and homeschool groups that might want to use them. And I hope that the teachers find them helpful. We know there are a lot of barriers when it comes to these school trips. And we're really proud that we don't charge admission fees, but sometimes there's other barriers too in terms of costs like buses and transportation costs. And I think having this virtual exhibit option will make our collection a little bit more exciting and a little bit more available for those students. If you want to check them out, they're on the educational resources page on our website, and you can check them out. But as I worked with it, like Greg said, it quickly became apparent that this was going to be interesting, not just for those K-12 groups, but also for the general public, especially during this time when we're all staying at home, in order to keep our community safe and healthy. Because it's really fun. It engages people in a different way. And sometimes I think having a hook like this virtual reality platform can really capture people's attention in a different way. But mostly I just think it's really fun. You're in control. You get to zoom around. It might be scandalous for a curator to say that, but I don't think that virtual exhibits like this will ever replace like an actual physical installation of artwork. I think that intimate relationship you have with the work of art when you're in our building is one that you can only have when you're in front of the actual work of art with all the detail and texture. I don't think we can replace that with the app, but I think we can supplement it, and it's really nice to be able to offer the community this safe way to interact with our artwork from their own homes right now.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that you guys understand that we want you to come back here as soon as it's safe. But this was a great opportunity to bring more stuff to a wider group of people, and it will continue after we open our doors back up. You'll have the ability to check this out when we're not open, or for people who can't get here. And along those same lines, Melissa's been working diligently to put a lot more of our collection on our website. So in the coming weeks, you're going to see a whole lot more availability of our permanent collection on the website, so that not only during times when people can't get here, but just to supplement what they get when they get here. If you have something in the collection that you absolutely love and it just doesn't happen to be up because it's, you know, art of table setting season or it's youth art month and we don't have a lot of wall space, you can still check it out on the website, whether it's through the virtual gallery or for a wide variety of the collection, the ability to check that out and see the paintings online. So, you know, Melissa and Diana have done a lot of work from home over the past 2 months, but I think that the work that they did is getting us into a much better place, as hopefully you'd agree by being here with us tonight. I also, one time again, want to thank our friends at the Waterfront Wine Bar. I know Rachel Beck was on a little bit earlier. She said she had to go back to the kitchen. I don't know whether she's back on now, but thank you very much, Waterfront Wine Bar, for, you know, first of all, agreeing to do such a strange thing, but also for providing this great food for the community. Again, I also want to thank Jesse for his work. It's a little tricky for me because I'm working off of a phone and a computer, but if anybody else has any questions for me or for anybody, for Diana, for Melissa, again, use the chat feature. And if I'm missing something, if you want to speak up and ask, or if somebody has written that in the chat feature, I can't see it from where I am right now. So if Diana, if there's anything directed at me, if you want to just yell it out, that'd be awesome.
Sure.
Otherwise, I'm going to eat.
Okay. Well, I can talk a little bit more about the exhibit if you like, Greg.
That would be great.
Yeah. Someone asked what his favorite work was, and I'm glad you didn't ask me because that would be too hard to pick. But in choosing the works for this exhibit, I tried to not only pick works that I thought would be good for the educational lessons, but also really highlight some of those iconic pieces that are jewels of our collection. And these pieces that I put by the door of the exhibit are really good examples of American modernism. These two works that we can see here are both by Walt Kuhn. They're done by the same artist in the same year, same media, and the same subject, but as you can see, they're so very different. And I really think they helped illustrate and tell a story about what was happening with art at this time, with how Americans were embracing modernism and abstraction and change in art. And Walt Kuhn was a big part of that story. He actually helped to organize the really important 1913 Armory Show, which brought a lot of modern art from Europe to America for the very first time for people to see. And his art, you can see it changing from being very traditional, like we see here in this floral still life here, where it's all pretty representational. I mean, it's a little bit, the brushstroke's a little loose, but you can tell what you're looking at. A flower is a flower. And then in the same year, he's creating this piece. Even within, I mean, they're almost the same color scheme. It's really interesting to see how he's flattened the space and reduced the flower shapes to their most essential lines and shapes. And it's really interesting that Mrs. West chose to get these two works for our collection and to be able to tell that story. And we're so lucky, I mean, we don't have a big collection. We have less than 3,000 works of art, that we have these opportunities to tell these stories. And they really, really complete the picture when you put them next to the George O'Keeffe piece and the Stuart Davis, who are two real core, some of the first American modernists. So it's pretty exciting to be able to showcase them like this too all together. We do not usually do that in the galleries in the museum itself, just because of the way the space is organized, but it's exciting to have this opportunity to tell this story. And I did create a lesson plan for high school students that talks about that and gives a little bit more context. So it was really great to have that opportunity to do that. Greg, I can't see you. Do you want to add anything, or should I keep talking?
You can keep talking, but I know my wife Diane was asking how, once you download the app, how do you find our exhibit?
So if you're in the app, you have to search. There's like a little magnifying glass, I think, and you have to search for it, and it doesn't always come up as the first thing when you search. So if you scroll to the right, or pull to the left, I guess you would say, it's usually about 5 in if you search for Rahr-West Art Museum. And then you'll have the option, if you're in the app, you could either look at it and like it'll look a lot like what we were looking at here, or you can actually view it in virtual reality. So it'll have the two images at once, and you'll put it in your virtual reality.
But when you go into the app, make sure not to sign in because it won't let you. You have to go in as a guest.
Oh,
Remember,
okay.
I had that issue and it was
Okay.
giving me an error message.
Yeah, since I created it, I do sign in when I go in. So
Yeah, it doesn't work.
doesn't work. Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah.
We also have some great examples of abstraction. And Diane Vadney, if you have any other questions, please let me know, and I'll try to answer them. On a lot of these pieces we featured recently on Facebook, so it's kind of interesting to see them in a different way. This is always a crowd favorite, the large Jenkins Phenomena Saturn Ascent. One of the really cool things about this Art Steps app is that you can put in the actual dimensions of the artwork. So so you really get the perspective when you put them next to one another of how big they are and how much space they actually take up in the actual gallery. And the app itself has some limitations. So when I first put this piece in, it wouldn't let me put in the scale because it thought it was too big. So I had to figure out I could put the vertical dimensions in, the height, but not the width. So it was kind of a little quirky part of the app, but it's apt because it's I think it's the largest painting in our collection. So it's pretty funny, but it's great to see the scale of everything.
Yeah, I think that is correct. It is the largest in our collection.
Yeah. This painting is kind of interesting, and I used it for the Principles of Design lesson plan to talk about rhythm. And one limitation that we do have in the app is that when you scroll in, you don't see a ton of detail, but it is nice that we have the website. See if I can get to it. I've got the site that Melissa has been working on. I put together a small gallery for the education pieces, and you'll be able to go in, and then you'll be able to make it bigger. Sorry, I have the technical difficulties here. So you'll be able to go in, and then you can really see the detail when you're on the website. So it's really nice to see these tools and how they can work together. If you keep going, there's a lot of examples of abstraction because they were really helpful in illustrating the elements of art and principles of design, because we had put together 2 lessons on those. And then there's some landscapes over here.
Yeah, I wanted to just touch base real quickly on the idea of the abstract art in our collection, and 2 in particular that I had about sometime last week I had profiled as my picks of the week. One by Ilya Bolotowski, one by James Brooks. And both of them were really meaningful to me, and I actually put a video together that you haven't seen yet, but I did want to mention it here, and you'll see it eventually, is both of them were, when I got here, seemed somewhat familiar to me, and it took me a while to figure out why. Growing up in near Albany, New York, I always loved museums, but I wasn't a huge art person. I didn't go to a lot of art museums, but I did go to the New York State Public Museum, which is in Albany. And it's part of a very sprawling complex that was built in the 1960s. And part of that is a place called the Concourse, which is essentially like just a mall that serves all of the state buildings. And it's, I mean, there's a McDonald's, there's restaurants, and there are retail stores. But in the midst of all of that, in the Concourse, are pieces of art that were purchased by New York State as part of this huge project in the 1960s. And it almost seems absurd today because we're so far removed with the idea of including high-level art in like a public building project. But for me as a kid, that was the first art I saw, was like stumbling into an Alexander Calder or, you know, a Paul Jenkins. There's a Paul Jenkins there, Ellsworth Kelly. All of these names that I wouldn't have recognized the names ever. But it was, for me as a young child, what I thought of when I thought of art. And so works like Brooks and the Ilya Bolotowski, the round golden tondo, were immediately something I gravitated towards when I got here. And what I also found out about those two artists in particular was that the artwork that I had seen as a child was not their first step into public arts, because they were both part of the Federal Arts Project, which was done during the Great Depression as part of the Works Progress Administration. And that put to work over 40,000 artists in America, all throughout America, many in Wisconsin, painting murals, creating public art. Down in Milwaukee, there was a large training school on arts trade. And those artists that came out of that program, most of them ended up becoming the foundation for 20th century American art. And it goes to the importance of supporting public arts, which of course we're a part of, and also understanding that in difficult times like the Great Depression right now, how important the arts are to our communities. Important enough that we dedicate time, money, and support towards the arts, because they are so important in times of struggle to help people, not only to help the individual artists, but to help communities to deal, to grieve, and to press on when things are bad. And it was something that I never really considered, but these artists are the people that touched me without really me gathering. Their artwork was the first thing that I ever noticed. So it was, that's something that I want to send out, but I wanted to share it with you because I think right now it's so important to talk about the public arts and how public arts can help as a catharsis. I also wanted to mention before we ended, part of this is obviously we wanted to showcase this new virtual gallery, but we also wanted to use this kind of as an excuse to get some of our great friends and our longtime patrons together. So please, if you want to share anything with each other, feel free to take it. You don't have to ask questions necessarily about the Rahr-West, but if you want to touch base with one another as a Zoom meeting, feel free to use this as you want to. The other thing I want to mention before I turn it over to Diana a little bit for some more is that the Rahr-West is part of the city announcement on scheduled openings. And we will be scheduled to open on Tuesday, June the 2nd. So we will be accepting people in person. It will be limited. We will be capping maximum attendance based on distancing. And we will be keeping our normal hours, so it'll be the same hours. We won't be doing any major events or programming. We won't be doing classes to start off, but we will be opening the doors. So if you feel like you could safely enjoy the museum in person, we are here for you after June the 2nd. Obviously, we have that date stated. Who knows what will happen between now and then. Hopefully that will be our date of opening. That's our target date for opening. So if you want to put that down, that's our target date for opening. For anybody who does attend, we really do encourage you, strenuously encourage you, wear a mask when you're here, just not only for your benefit, but for the benefit of all the patrons and all of the staff here, that we do our part to make sure that we're safely enjoying our community and safely enjoying the art here, and that we can create an environment where we can keep things open once they are open. Diana, I know you can't pick a favorite, but did you have any other thoughts about what piece of art, when you added it to this virtual gallery, gave you the most joy? What was there anything that when you were either, when you were thinking about it, you were like, I know exactly what I want to put up here, or something that when you put it up, you were just like, oh, this works perfectly?
This piece here, actually, I had some empty space, and I didn't use a lot of landscapes for the education materials, so there didn't end up being a lot of landscapes in the online exhibit. But this James Cook painting, I don't know why I really like it in real life, and I really like it online too. I think it's really dramatic with the lighting, the dark shadows in the foreground and the background, and then how you have this tree that's like grasping to survive in the middle. I just think it's really interesting to look at it and think about it, especially right now. It's hopeful. And then if you turn around, there's a ton of portraits in here because there's a lesson that's all about portraits for kindergarten through second graders. So this whole aisle here is portraits, which is great because we can really highlight some different time periods and styles and media.
Thank you very much, Diana. Does anyone else have any questions for us? Well, then once again, I want to thank certainly all of the work that Diana put into this, all the work that Melissa's been putting into the museum. I want to make sure that we also thank Jessie for, and by the way, Jessie Daniels, if you go to our Facebook page, you'll see in the post that we mentioned him a link to his SoundCloud, so you can find out more about his music there. And I also want to give one last shout out to the Waterfront Wine Bar for all of their help on this. And finally, I want to thank all of you for continuing to support us at the Rahr-West Art Museum, even when you can't be here in person. This was really unique. I hope that the next time we have an opening that we're able to do it in person. But if not, it's wonderful to be able to see you guys even in little screens. We wish you all the best on returning to a safe and hopefully close to normal life. And we're certainly going to be a part of that. Again, we are here. So if you have any questions going forward, one, this exhibit is up on our website, so you can continue to check it out on the website. If you have any questions about that or anything else about the Rahr-West, you can contact us. Probably best way right now is still email me at gvadney@manitowoc.org. Diana is also on the website, Melissa's on the website, or the general site, Rahr-West@manitowoc.org. Thanks a lot for participating in this, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you want us to do it again, let us know.